Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar, that will talk you through the submission interface, a new application that you will have to start using soon to submit all your documents to the CENELEC Management Center. This presentation is in particular going through the CENELEC rules and way of working. My name is Els and I will be moderating the webinar in the background. For your information, you will all be muted during the presentation, so you're not able to ask your question out loud. The chat is also disabled, but we do invite you to use the Q&A panel to submit all your questions and comments. That should be available for you, and the presenters will have a look at your questions on the spot, and we will try to reply as many questions as possible. Should that not be the case and your question remains unreplied, please bear in mind that we intend to make a Q&A report available. You will also be informed when that report is available online. We are recording this webinar, so you will be able to listen back if you want. You will be informed afterwards when the link is available. We will also be sharing the complete presentation with you. So without further ado, please let me hand over the floor to my colleagues, Melanie, Sebastian, and Gonzalo, who are here to guide you to the submission interface. So please, guys, the floor is yours. Gonzalo, we cannot hear you. You're muted.
Sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gonzalo Ascensão. I'm the account manager for the digital solutions team, which encompasses the so-called production team in CCMC. So I will briefly introduce you to the submission interface, why we are here, why we are implementing this new tool, and in a nutshell, this submission interface will allow us to replace the submission of documents by email. As you may be aware, this submission of documents, of course, has some weak points currently, and this is one of the elements that we want to improve in the submission of documents from CENELEC Secretariats to CCMC. As you know, the system at the moment is a fully manual process. It's resource consuming from both sides. We are, of course, not connected to the metadata of the projects. We don't know which kind of work item will be. And there is also, of course, at a certain point, a risk of not enough transparency. And, we also not being 100% aware where we are in the process. Also from your side, if you want to trace where your project is and to monitor, it's not always easy. And of course, if you want to have some information, very often you need to use email again to provide and to have additional information. Finally, whenever you have documents of big size, this also becomes a problem. Outlook is also limiting this submission in a certain way. So this is also one of the areas that we want to solve. Then, what will bring the submission interface? So first of all, there will be the possibility to clearly know which is your project, and in the work item that is associated to the document that you want to submit. In that sense, you will have all the relevant metadata of the project. You will know if it's a submission to inquiry, if it's a submission to formal vote. You will see if your project, is in a phase that needs to be submitted. Next to it, there is also the intention long term is also to have a semi-validated process, and we'll come back to this a little bit further. So if you are able to go through the submission interface and you submit a document, you'll know directly if the document has been submitted or not. In the same way, once you submit, you are able to follow up and see if it has been already accepted, if there are issues, and if your document is rejected or not. In terms of expected benefits now coming with this submission interface, in principle will be a user-friendly interface which guide you through the steps. It should enable the reduction of errors, missing the project, the document to be submitted. it will be more open, more transparent, and will increase the efficiency of these submissions, also the understanding from your side, and will allow you to trace and to see where are your projects and to monitor and so on. Now, in terms of the next steps for the submission interface, so what we have planned at the moment is that the tool will be available, so you can already start submitting documents after the 28th of November. We highly recommend you to do that. But at the same time, whenever there are issues and if you are still not comfortable with the tool, we can still allow the email submission until the 1st March 2023. So after that date on, all the submissions should go through the submission interface. And then now in the next slides, Melanie and Sebastian will guide you to some of the elements of the submission interface, and also some of the details that are behind it in a way.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Melanie Erfurt, I'm IT project manager, and I've been working on the submission interface project together with the project production team. So what we will see today is how you can access submission interface, who has access. We're going to have a look at the homepage, which is quite interesting information-wise. We're going to walk you through all the possibilities in terms of submitting files, how it's working, how you can obtain help, and also we're going to try to have a submission so that you can see live how it's working. Unfortunately, the development is not completely finished in the sense that it's still a bit slow for a web application. A Word developer is currently working on it. So you will see that during the demonstration, it's a bit slow, but that should be solved for next week when we deploy in production. And then Sebastian will walk you through the image quality check tool, which can be an interesting tool to provide quality figure images. And then we'll let you know how you can get in touch with us in case of any issues. So to access submission interface, you have a direct link that you can just paste in the browser. Please feel free to access it today if you want to see it. It's available, but try to not use it because we haven't deployed yet the latest version, the one that will allow you to submit documents to our production team. We will also put a card on the CENELEC expert area in the usual application and services page, where you will be able to find the direct link to submission interface, a user manual, and a quick start guide that you can use to get yourself started. So with IEC, CENELEC has a standard identity federation, so you can log in with your IEC CENELEC, your login and password, so as you would to EMS collaboration platform. People who have access, secretary, acting secretary, and assistant secretary, so role registered in EMS, and those roles are allocated by CCMC. So this is the submission interface homepage. We're not going to take too much time on the slides because I will show you the actual application. So it's presented as a dashboard where you can see your TC, work items, standard reference, filters, and sorting functions. We'll go through this a bit more in detail in the actual demonstration. So this is from the quick start guide. So you have metadata available that you need to check and confirm when using submission interface. And you've got as well different fields where you can attach or drop files as needed for your submission. Other functions that are available is in top of all the sorting functions, you have things like a button to resubmit your submission in case it's not correct, it's been rejected. And you have also a history of what was submitted. So in case you would think that you have forgotten something or you're not sure if you did submit something, you can see all the files that were submitted. Those are recorded in submission interface. So we will go now to the actual application. So I'm going to leave the PowerPoint presentation. And here you can see on my screen. So this is how submission interface is presented to you as a technical committee. You can have one or several, if you have several technical committees. So when you connect, everything is mixed up together, which is why you have different filters that you can use to sort out your dashboard and to work in a more efficient way. So on the first column, you have the technical body, then the work item number, then you have the standard reference, if any, Then you have the stage code, which is the milestone as provided on the first page of the project of Projects Online when you connect to your projects on Projects Online. Then you have a deadline for your submission. You have the submission type, so different type of submissions are available. It's calculated so that the correct type of submission is showing on the screen. If you submit something, then you have the submission date. Then the next column is the status, where you can see what is started, not started, rejected, accepted. So if you want to see, for example, what is submitted, you can see the different documents that were already submitted. Or you can have the whole selection. And then on the last column, the selection, you have a hyperlink that is showing to you, you can click, and that is opening either the form for you to submit a document, or it's allowing you to view what was submitted in the past. So the submission interface keeps a history of everything. So if you have submitted a document at several stages in the submission interface, you will be able to see for the whole life of the work item, you will be able to see that, okay, this was accepted at inquiry stage, it was also accepted as at formal vote stage. So I'm going to open now a form, and we're going to see what's in there on one of the forms. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to bear with me a little bit. So the application is still very slow, and our developer is working on it to try and make it faster. So we're going to see. In the meantime, if you already have questions or queries or worries, you can use the Q&A to try and already. Okay, I'm going to restart it a little bit. Sometimes it's something that is working. As you can see, it's taking a while to load. It's about 20 to 30 seconds, which is for web applications a very long time. It's not so much time if you're trying to get dressed on time in the morning. On my TC9X, for example. Now I've got only my work items for TC9X available, and now I'm going to start the form. So you can see on the form different informations are available, just so that you know where you are. So you've got your work item number, standard reference, if any, your technical committee, and the type of submission you are into. There's information related to directive and standardization requests that Gonzalo is going to explain to you a bit later. Then you have checkbox that you need to use to confirm that you agree. There's no need to modify the data that is shown there. So the submission language is English. For CENELEC, they can submit in other for sensory, they can submit in other language, not in CENELEC. So that's why the English is default. So you don't need to think about the language. It's English by default. So that's done for you when you start. Then some fields are mandatory. For example, the revisable format and the PDF format. So those are the files that you have to provide for CCMC to be able to do their job of editing after. And some fields are not mandatory. It means that you may or not provide those those documents. So if the fields are not mandatory, then there's a little kind of reminder in the application. It's either you drop a file or you browse to get a file, or you say, I don't need to provide that file. And then you are sure when you are submitting your files that you have gone through all the requirements and you are sure that you haven't forgotten something. So it's acting a little bit like a reminder. Then you also have the possibility to, if any file is, you need to provide a file to CCMC, but it's not possible to provide a file to CCMC because none of the fields that are available in your form are made for that provision. So big forms are custom. So it might be that if you're in a certain type of work item with a certain data, not all the fields that you need are available. You always have this other field that allows you to give something different that is not planned for above to CCMC. So if you need to provide them with something different. As well, you can also leave a comment to production colleagues by using the little comment box here. So basically, you just type in your text that will be transferred into our database in a place where they know where to look when they receive a resubmission from you. So that's all the files. Also, there is a question mark on each field that is giving you an explanation of what is expected of you and where to find the information. So that is the main features of the form. So before we go to the actual submission, I will leave the floor to Gonzalo, because so that I can give you more explanation on all these directness policies and standardization requests.
Thanks, Melanie. So first of all, if you have links to the legislation and to standardization requests, the following information that you see on the screen will be visible for you. For your information, what we have been doing in terms of, we have been trying to improve the metadata, and this information is only available here in the submission interface at the moment. But what we are trying to do is also to guide you through the needs for, for the as assessment, for the Annex Z. So this is a complementary information to what today exists, for instance, in projects online, and some updates will be done in the other tools. So if you see any inconsistency, please do not hesitate to communicate to us while you are providing the submission. If you move on a little bit lower, then the submission interface, then the submission interface will guide you through the different elements. So you have of course the parts relevant to the submission of the document itself. Concerning the figure files and so on, Sebastian will come back to this a little bit later. So in terms of additional elements, as you know now, if you have the Annex Z, there will be the element to confirm, if you have the Annex Z also in the file. If you have normative references that are not dated, so you also are supposed to provide justification on those. You may be aware that the Commission is challenging this concept that if you have undated normative reference, that these need to be justified. Of course, you also need to provide the comments after the inquiry and also the comments from the consultant. So this also to support all the next steps. So of course, we are talking about the submission after the inquiry, of course. Then in the cases where the risk assessment is required to be provided as well, you also have a place to provide it. And finally, I would say for the harmonization elements, you have also the place to provide the checklist for harmonized standards. On a completely different topic, and just to highlight to you, whenever you have issues with patents, and someone has identified that there is a need to refer or to highlight a patent, you also have the possibility to bring the file, with a license statement for the use of the patent. And of course, there are ad hoc actions coming from that. So in terms of the harmonization elements, the main purpose of the submission interface was basically to try to guide you through the steps that are needed. And of course, with the use and with the experience, we can of course try to adapt if we see there are elements that are not fully in line with the needs. Important maybe to highlight that this is also the submission interface will also allow the submission of harmonizing elements for parallel projects. And we also need to see how this process will go, because it's not always 100% straightforward. Also the links with common mods. So this is something that we will have to use and see how it works in practice. And from my side, that was it. And I will pass to Sebastian.
Yeah. So first, I will show you how submission is done, so that you can see for yourself that it's not that complicated. So what I'm going to do, I've got my little set of files prepared. So you can do either, you can drop files, or you can browse and search for the files on your computer. So because the revisable format is always a needed one, so I'll just close that one into the interface. So this one says that I don't have any figure files in the Word document, so it's like this is no longer highlighted and it can no longer be accessed, because if you have no figure files in your document, there's no point in having you providing figure files. If you have figure files, on the other hand, you can always choose to load your document. But if you cannot provide any figure files to CCMC, you can choose to say that I don't have any figure files to provide to CCMC. So that is your own choice at the moment. Then I'll just take in my PDF format because that one is mandatory. And then I choose what I have and what I do not have. So the commenting form after the inquiry, that one is a mandatory one. So I will provide one to the applications. And then for the rest, I can choose that I have or I do not have. Some of the fields have a double check. So for the identification of patents, either you confirm that you have them or not. It's just to make sure that you look at those and they're not being forgotten. And so if you confirm that you don't have anything, then that's fine. You can not give anything. But if you confirm that you have something that is identified in your document, then the application is telling you then you have to provide a document to us. It's not just about telling us that you have identified patents in your document. And then in the other field, you can just drop anything that you no longer need. And then when that is done, so I will show you what happens. You need to check the little box here to confirm that you review the data on top of the forms. If you don't, basically the application is going to tell you off. So if I do this, I have forgotten to fill in one of the checkbox, give a file or check one of the checkbox. So the application is informing me that this should be done. So I do this, and also I haven't checked this box, so this should be done as well. So I have to do this, and then I can submit my files. So the submitting itself, so you can see while it's working, looking here, it may take a little time. It depends on the size of your file. It's collecting all the files and renaming them and transferring them somewhere in CCMC. So that's why it's not instant. Once you have submitted your file, then you have a kind of review of what you've done. So you see what you submitted for what procedure, and you can see what files have gone through the application. So that's also allowing you to see, okay, maybe if you want to check later, if you think you've forgotten something, or if you're not sure what you uploaded, you can always go back and see what was uploaded or not. So if I do a back home, this is going to take just a little bit of time. I can show you one of the work items. So when the document is submitted, it's just the screen that we have seen, just a blue screen showing what documents you have submitted. But after that, of course, CCMC is evaluating your files and accepting or rejecting. If there's any elements that are missing and you have to provide, then they okay, I'm going to do clear filters. Okay, it's not showing a research. It's not showing a rejected one. That is very strange because I'm pretty sure there was one. I will find it. So you can see, we can browse. Okay, that one is just gone. I'm not sure why. Let's just try to reload again. So hopefully reloading is fixing everything. It's not. Okay. So if you would have a file that is rejected, then I will show you on the presentation. That's why the presentation is there, so that we can go back to an image to show you in case. Basically, your form would be red, showing red, with when CCMC rejected your document. And here you would have under the date a list of reasons why CCMC rejected your document. So it might be an element was missing or something was not correct. And then if you do that, then if we manage to log in onto the rejected item, you have a button that is correct submission. So the correct submission is allowing you to, if you just click on the correct submission, basically it's reopening the form that you had previously for your first resubmission. So it will just reopen that form that you just used, and then you can just start over and correct your version. Let me show you what will happen. So it would be exactly the same as checking start submission. You would land again on the exact same form with all the same options for your work item. So I think I have shown everything I wanted to show, except that rejected item that just disappeared, but that's all right. Luckily, we had a picture of it. So now I'm going to give the floor to Sébastien for the following of our presentation.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Sébastien, and I work in the editing and production team at CCMC. And here I'm going to walk you through and explain a little bit this tool, which is image quality check. So this tool is more powerful than the one that we had before, and is made available to all drafters so that you can check at any time the quality of your figures, which is also very important in a sense for the XML conversion. This is why we do have this improvement that took place. And you can see here the different quality and requirements that are expected in order to have the best conversion possible. This also is linked with the insertion of images in the document, the way they are inserted. So you do have the difference between linked, which allows an automated update within the Word document. In case a figure is changed, you don't need to change it back within the document itself. You can just change it in the main folder where your document is located. So this is quite easy and useful when several figures needs to be redrawn, for instance. And this is the difference with embedded pictures, that you need to go manually remove them and reinsert them afterwards. When you will be providing the image files via the submission interface, so this is always best so that we have the best rendering with the XML conversion. And there are two different ways of doing this. If they are linked in the way that I will present to you a bit later in the slides, then you can use the graphic files field that Melanie showed earlier. Otherwise, if they are embedded, you can use the field others to submit those figures so that it's not blocking and that you can go through with the submission. There will be, of course, guidance regarding this image quality checks and the different tips that we've picked up. They will be available on the CENELEC bus in the reference material guidance document drafting guidance. So you have the different path here where it will be set, and as well that would be on the CENELEC expert area. For the accesses, you have the direct link, which is accessible through the projects online directly. And this is the home page. In this field here in the middle, you can just drop or select the option choose to browse your computer and select the zip file that you would like the tool to be accessing. Clicking on submit will check the document, and there will be a pop-out window that appears afterwards. So here in the different tabs, we will go through one by one, but I will not go into too much detail for it, just so that you have the overview and you know where to find the information later on if you decide to use the tool. So the first tab checks the images, the image files individually. This checks for the, I'm sorry, this tab Word image checks the different linking of the images, and also the sizes, and whether the output size is the correct one, is 100%, and if there are any scaling or cropping discrepancies. So here within the Word document, this is a way to insert the different images properly so that it can be shown on any devices, and so that the links, as I mentioned earlier, if you decide to change one of the images or many images in your separate files, this can be updated then automatically within the Word document. This is here the way to find if the figures that you have, they are linked or not within your Word document. If they are, you will see from the file ribbon, well, top ribbon, and then to the info and the right side, edit links to file. If this option is not there, that means that there are no figures linked within the document. Now, in order to check the output size of a figure in the Word, you can double click on this image. You will have the format menu that will appear, and by clicking on the pop-up square arrow, you can find here the sizing. In this example, it's 100% on both sides. And the last step of this report will be the word shapes. So that can be text boxes, shapes, auto shapes that are inserted often by mistake within the document, and usually they are hidden. So this is, we will see here in the next slide, I believe, how we can look for those. So a good advice would be already to have the paragraph mark enabled so that you can see where in the document you are, and you can easily find back what you're looking for. When you open the navigation pane by pressing Ctrl F, you can select the graphics and going up and down with the arrows, and this will select all the graphics, can be images, objects, shapes, text boxes, and so on. In order to remove them, as you can see, once it's selected, you have the blue anchor appearing on the left side, and there is a little gray square that appears behind the word necessary. When you click on the blue anchor, you can right click and press cut, and that will be removing in this appearance that was a shape. And so, of course, we expect you to have some feedback to provide us in order to improve or guide you to the right answer or the right way of using those tools. The relevant documentation will be provided. Here, I believe my fingers were a bit too tired to write CENELEC in its entirety. So that will be on the CENELEC expert area and CENELEC bus. So for the feedback, questions, and issues, that will be towards production@cenelec.eu. However, if nothing works at all, this is more to the IT support at cenelec.eu.
Yes, so as usual, you are our primary user for most of CCMC applications, and you are usually the people noticing first that it's not working because CCMC staff are not really using what is provided. And so as usual, please do contact us at IT support so that we can work on it straight away, so that you're not blocked for too long in your work. So this is the end of our presentation. We will now be muted ourselves and wait a little bit. I don't see many question or answer at the moment, but we will leave you about 5 minutes to think about it and see if you have anything you would like to ask us.
Yes, thank you, Melanie. In fact, a few questions came in, but they were replied in the background, so that's nice. That's good. Should people have other questions, we still have some time, of course, to have you answering them and to treat them. As promised, if your question remains unreplied, we tend to make a Q&A report available. The webinar is also being recorded, so you'll receive later in your inbox today a link to the recording as well as this presentation.
Yes, so far, so we have 2 questions left, so we're gonna answer them. So the first one is it possible to inform other members of the committee for the submission? So the equivalent of putting in copy during email submission. So no, it's not possible because submission interface is only open to those technical body officers role that need to submit documents. So this is only open to those persons. But of course, if you have someone in your TC that should be specially informed, there's always the assistant secretary role that can access as well. So it's not limited to just the TC secretary. Then we've got another question. That's when I go to the submission interface, no, I cannot find any data. So it doesn't need to be filled in. It depends what your TC is, and maybe you don't have anything to submit at the moment. So only things that have to be submitted will be displayed. And later, when you have submitted a certain number of things, then the history will remain. But obviously, at the moment, no TC has any history because no one really started working with it. So if you think that you should have items displayed for submission, it's possible that nothing is displayed because the latest version was not deployed yet. So the selection is not fully correct. That's why I was saying try to not use it before the 28th. Because the selection is not fully correct. That's why we have a deployment on the 28th to give you the full features of the submission interface. So if there's still more questions, we can still be there a little while with you. If you're thinking of anything, do not hesitate to let us know.